I've been wanting to put together some MakseLife goals since the beginning of 2023. I bought the planner last December and I really wanted to implement it this year, but in January I was so busy that I didn't even have time to set up my regular planner. At the time, I was interim director at the library I was working at, and I was trying to train the new director that was coming in. It was just a very hectic time for me after the holidays and everything. I didn't even have an opportunity to do anything until I left that job in March, and then I went right into doing HB90 and trying to restart my business and start my YouTube channel and all of that. And so I just was like, okay, I need to come back to this at another point in time. However, I don't want to leave this until right before the new year. I would like to get an idea at least of where I would like to be before then, so it's not like I'm trying to get everything all prepped up for a new year. With the holidays and everything, I don't want to have to try to do all of this at the last minute. So I would like to get it pre-prepped for the next year and then get a head start on some of these goals in November and December. So first, I just want to walk you through something that I created in an app that I use. The app is called TickTick. If you would like to see a further in-depth view of how I use this, please let me know. I'd already considered going over how I use this alongside my HB90 planning if I ever actually film a video about how I prep for that. I've used quite a few task management apps. This one in particular I picked because you have the option to go into the monthly calendar and to filter down by different tags. So currently it's showing my photography content calendar, so it makes it really easy to plan things out with deadlines and as ongoing projects instead of just singular tasks. I also really liked that it had the option to go to it by website, so I don't have to be on a Mac product or an Apple product in order to be able to get to it, because I use a regular Windows PC for the majority of my work, so I wanted to make sure that I could get to it from my main machine, as well as it being easily accessible from all of my devices, so from my MacBook, my iPad, and my phone, which it is. Which is why I decided to set up this running to-do list, because it makes it really easy for me to just go in and add a task to the list and then sit down later and add a tag to it and add a time frame that I want to it. I currently have it set up to show in this Kanban view, which makes it easy to see all of the ASAP, all of the short-term, all of the long-term tasks. But you can also go into the task list, and you can choose how you want it to be filtered, so you can easily see a whole entire list of all of the different things on your task list. I actually got this idea from a friend of mine, a new friend of mine, Kayla. She has the Oh Hello Co. YouTube channel, and she's a big planner as well. She actually has a notebook that is literally just full of ongoing task lists. She posted about it not that long ago, and I was like, this sounds like a very good idea for me to do, to just have an ongoing list of tasks. And I was trying to think about what would be the most sensible way to create this list for me. At first, I didn't want to put it in TickTick because it seemed like an overwhelming idea. I didn't want to go with Apple Notes because I wanted to make sure I could get to it from my regular computer as well. GoodNotes I knew was not going to work because it's too difficult to get to it sometimes when it's glitchy. I wanted something that was going to be typed text instead of handwriting. I tried Google Docs, and then I realized it's going to be not as simple as I want it to be to get to this list from my phone. The other option was Notion, but I'm not a huge Notion fan right now when I have a bunch of other things that I could use. I should have just gone this route to begin with, long story short. As the app that I use to keep track of literally everything that I have to do on a regular basis, I should have just automatically chosen this one. Once I decided that TickTick was what I wanted to do it in, then I was like, okay, I know I want to have a running task list so that I can go in and easily reference this when I'm trying to figure out what needs to be done. Because a lot of the time, I have an idea for something, but I don't know how I'm going to implement it in my life yet. Or I'm watching a YouTube video and I think this might be an interesting thing to try and work into my life, but I'm not ready to do that, or I'm not ready to do the work for it yet. Or there are just certain things around here that I keep thinking of that need to be done that I don't want to forget about. I have started keeping a morning brain dump /journal so that I'm able to get some of my feelings about things out on paper, and sometimes I'll put those kinds of things in there, but then I realized I never go back to reference these. So why am I putting these things in there? Yes, it's a brain dump, but I should be putting these in places where I can easily search them or find them again later. As things come to me, I'll just enter them into this list quickly, and then I've been sitting down every few days or so to go through and add a tag to something and add it to a time frame. You can add dates and deadlines to each task in TickTick, but I decided I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to have specific dates set up when these are not necessarily tasks that have solid deadlines. I decided instead to sort them into sections based on whether it was something I needed to address as soon as possible, so in the next few weeks, a short-term goal or task, which is like in the next 3 months, or long-term, like these are things that I want to incorporate at some point, but they're not on my radar as of right now. And then I decided that since I was going to do the MakseLife planning, I wanted to put the tags on here to sort them out into the categories that I'm going to be looking at for MakseLife. When I'm trying to think of goals for the entire year, for the quarter, for each month, I can easily see what area of my life those things go into. So I'm going to be working off of these tasks that I already have sorted out. Oh, the other thing was that I could have added a priority to each of them, but I felt like that was going to be too overwhelming as well. So anyway, so now that I've shown you the tracker that I'm going off of, I want to go through my results for the assessment. I already sat down and did all of this. I'm just going to talk through like why I scored myself the way I did. Maybe next time I do this, I'll actually walk through this with you. So for personal, I ended up with a score of 6. I gave myself a lower score on I give myself grace for my limits and imperfections, I'm comfortable spending time alone, and there are hobbies and interests I engage in regularly, because I am terrible about guilt tripping myself for spending time doing the things that I want to do instead of the things that I feel like need to be done. I also am not very comfortable spending time alone. When I was in the middle of my divorce and I was living by myself, I was, because I spent most of my time alone. But I mean, now that I'm in a decent relationship, have my son most of the time, it's not often that I spend time alone. And it's not necessarily out of codependence, but it's more so that like we just enjoy spending time together so much that it's hard for us to want to be away from the other person. Like when I go do things, I want him to be with me because I want him to get to experience them with me. So I don't go do things by myself very often. Sometimes I do if I'm going downtown, if I'm going to the library. Like I would never go out to eat by myself. And there are hobbies and interests I engage in regularly. There are, but I would like to work in time to intentionally work on them. I tend to get overwhelmed with other things that I'm supposed to be working on, and then I use them to procrastinate doing those things, and then I make myself feel guilty about it. So it's kind of a vicious cycle there. So instead, what I would like to do is I would like to say like, hey, I'm going to spend this much time every week, like sitting down to crochet something on the couch. Or, you know, I don't really do art very much anymore. I really would like to, because every single time I come back to it, I'm super rusty because I don't do it very often. And I have so many art supplies. I have an iPad with Procreate on it. Like I could do art anytime I wanted to, and I never do. I also really enjoy singing and playing the piano. I have a keyboard, and I hardly ever do it when I'm just home. For fun and recreation, this was one of my lower scores. I gave myself a 4. I have a really hard time just doing things because I want to without feeling bad about it. If I'm not feeling bad about my time being more wise spent doing something else instead of having fun, then I'm feeling guilty about us spending money, or I'm feeling guilty about, not necessarily guilty, bad about not being great at socialization, how that affects my ability to talk to other people in my relationships. So I don't often just like relax and have a good time. For work and learning, I gave myself a 6. This one's kind of middle of the road. I feel like I'm back on the track that I need to be doing something that is fulfilling. But at the time that I filled this out, I wasn't doing quite as much as I am now. This was about a month ago that I actually did the assessment, which probably wasn't a great idea. At the time, I wasn't really talking to other people, so like having positive interactions at work, that I was having no interactions at work. I'm contributing to the work the way I desire. Not yet. That's just something that's going to come with time as things pick up. I'm not going to do very much goal planning for that category anyway, because most of my work stuff is going to be HB90 related, so I'm not sure how much we'll talk about the category anyway. But family and relationships is my lowest score. This is the thing that I struggle with the most in my regular life. I have the same kind of struggles as I do for fun and recreation, where I have a hard time like being present with everybody and not feeling guilty for either not being great at socializing or not spending other time where I need to, spending too much time with my family, having fun, versus like doing things that I need to be doing or that I should be doing. This one's tough to read for me, and it'll probably be tough to share. I don't know how much of this I'll actually end up putting in the video, because this is probably too much information, but I'll be real. As somebody with ADHD, I also struggle a lot with like rejection issues. I've struggled in the past with emotions and being able to relate to people. I'm very empathic. I can pick up on people's body language. I can feel what they're feeling to a detrimental extent sometimes. Actually understanding people, caring about people is very difficult for me. It almost makes me feel like a sociopath sometimes. I just had this conversation with my parents last weekend. It's not that I don't care about people, because I do. Like when bad things happen to people, I'm sad for them. When good things happen to people, I'm happy for them. It's like at arm's length. I don't usually feel like I'm a part of that at all, or usually feel like I'm important enough to have a vested interest in it. I don't know. It's really difficult because it's like these are people that I know care about me. These are people that I know are my closest friends. Like I don't have a ton of friends, but like the ones that I do have, I know they enjoy me. Like I know they are my friends and they care for me, and I still have a really hard time in this area of life. It's also very difficult for me to make friends, and I try really hard to put myself out there and be what I think people expect out of somebody. As somebody that struggles so much with the social aspect of my life, it's hard for me to feel like I fit in anywhere. And when I do, like, vibe with people or actually want to be friends with somebody, I almost feel like I'm intruding, or like they don't want to be friends with me in the same way that I want to be friends with them. I just went to a Halloween party last weekend. I was invited to this Halloween party. I felt like, not necessarily I was only invited because I was part of this group, but everybody that was part of this group got invited to this party. I was the only person that showed up, and we drove an hour away for it. The only person that was part of this group that all got invited to the party anyway. There were other people there. It was just, I was the only person from that section of these people's lives that went to this party. I've been going to this group for almost a year now, genuinely vibe with the people in the group, and I could totally see myself being better friends with them at some point. It sucks because I live an hour and 15 minutes away from all of them, but I would be willing to make the drive occasionally to go to things or to see people get together. That's not that big of a deal, especially if they're like actual valuable relationships and stuff. So I am not Facebook friends with the person, and I actually went up to her when we were leaving the party and I said, "Hey, by the way, I friend requested you on Facebook. I don't know if that's weird." And she was like, "Oh no, that's not weird. Why would you think that's weird? Like, okay, that's cool." Like, and I'm sitting there like being a weird person, like trying to like almost justify why I thought that I should have sent her a Facebook friend request. And like I was self-conscious about that being weird because I didn't want her to think I was weird, because after a year of socializing with her almost, I like requested to be friends with her on Facebook, even though I was at her Halloween party that I was invited to. And I don't know, it's just my brain is a scary place sometimes. All that being said, this is obviously a place that I struggle with a lot in my life. And I mean, if you knew me for a while, or you saw me around my friends and family that I actually am comfortable with, you would probably have no idea, because I'm very talkative, I'm very loud, and I'm very outgoing around people that I'm comfortable with. But if I am not comfortable with somebody, I am so quiet, people probably think I'm bored. And it's really just that I'm like sitting there quietly contemplating like, what's the best way to insert myself into this conversation that's not going to make me look or sound like an idiot? How can I talk to somebody without being an awkward mess? I gave myself a 2 on I share mutual love, respect, and appreciation with my loved ones. And this one is tough because it's not necessarily that that's not true, but I feel like because I keep everybody at arm's length, people don't often end up feeling that way from me, even though I do feel those things about them. And because my head is so messed up and tells me constantly that like people don't actually care about me, because why would they? Like I don't feel that way about other people either, that they care about me the way that I think they should. I gave myself a 1 for having healthy boundaries, because I have basically no boundaries. I gave myself a 5 from being free from toxic relationships, because there are still multiple places in my life where I am addressing these. Previous family situations and my previous marriage have been toxic in the past. While they're not active portions of my life that I deal with on a daily basis anymore, there are definitely things that I need to do to heal myself from those things and to repair some of those relationships. I gave myself a 2 for having a sense of community and belonging where I live, work, and play. I gave myself a pretty low score on this one because we just recently moved to Marshall. I previously lived in the town that I went to high school in. My son went to the same school I did, so I knew a lot of people in town. I was part of the business district. I was part of the PTO. I knew a lot of people in town. I worked at the library, so I was very familiar with a lot of the faces that would come in. Once I got my divorce and I moved to Marshall, I left my job at the library shortly after that. I closed my business. I moved out of my studio. I have a hard time here because most of the people that I know in Marshall are connected to my parents or they're like longtime family friends. I don't really have a place that I fit in here yet in town. I came from feeling like I was a big fish in a small pond because I had my hand in so many things in Nashville. And then to come here and be involved in nothing makes me feel very differently. I feel like if I would have scored myself on these things today, that I probably would have given myself a slightly higher score because I have started to get into some of the things that are going on downtown. We haven't necessarily met anybody new or anything like that yet, but I have started to get into some of the stuff that's going on at the library. So I've met some of the staff members and they recognize me now. My son has a friend here in town that comes over occasionally, and we have invited her parents over before, so we know them now. We talk to our neighbors occasionally. So we are kind of slowly getting into Marshall. It's just gonna take time, and I need to figure out where I want to fit in here. So it's just hard because we were in a place that was basically my domain because that's where I went to school, that's where I grew up. And now we've moved to a place where this is my parents' domain and my grandparents' domain. They have lived here their entire lives. My parents lived a neighborhood over from where we live now. And so most of the people that we know nearby us are because my parents were friends with them. I would like to get to the point where I recognize some friendly faces in town. That's ultimately just where I want to be at some point. But actually being involved in some of the organizations and stuff would be nice too. I like feeling like I'm contributing actively to the place that I'm spending most of my time in and that my kids are going to grow up in. I don't know what that looks like yet. The last 2, I gave myself 3s on both of them. I have clarity and peace in the areas I feel like I'm lacking. This one's a little difficult for me to answer because yes and no. I feel like I know where I'm lacking and I'm very upfront about that. And I feel like no matter how many times I tell people that it's an active issue that I know I struggle with, it's still something that always gets brought up, and which is why I also rated myself pretty low for actively designing what I want for my relationships, because that being one of my weaker points, basically texting, Facebook messaging, stuff like that. Those are hard for me. The notification overwhelm on my devices, on top of social media being a thing and just being active all day long and having multiple message threads going on with multiple people at a time. Also, the struggles that I have with things being out of sight, out of mind. So, if I see them and I forget to respond to them in the moment, I'll forget about them. Sometimes I feel like people come down on me so hard for that and don't notice the other things that I do to try to make up for that. I don't know how to fix that other than becoming good at something that I've never been good at, which is a difficult thing to wrap my mind around because it's something I'm already very aware of and I do try, but no matter how hard I try, I still am not great at it. I would much rather that understand that about me, are willing to excuse it, I guess, because they know that's not something I'm good at, and see the other ways that I show up for the people that I love in my life. There are lots of things that I feel like I do to try to make up for that. I am almost always physically at everything that I can be at, even when it's inconvenient for me. And I will try to figure out a way to make it work for me to come to something, even when I'm not sure if I'll be able to. And if not, I will feel bad about it because I want to be there. The communication part is definitely going to be part of my goals for next year. I just feel like I'm the kind of person who's better at showing people I care about them, doing things for them, giving them things, gifting them things, cooking for them, being around them in person and spending my time, which I feel is valuable with them. The age of social media and text messaging and all of that, not getting to see your people in person very often. I don't thrive in my relationships when I don't see people on a regular basis, which is unfortunately how I've spent most of my adult life. I have spent most of my adult life feeling very lonely because of not seeing people in person. Health and wellness, also not a great score. Gave myself a 4. I also feel like this has gotten a little bit better recently because I have actually added a regular exercise routine. We got a walking pad in the last month, and I've been trying to get at least 5,000 steps a day, if not 10. I have kind of fallen off in the last week because I've been having some issues with my back, but I would like to get started on it again because I was doing really well for a while. I have issues with my body image and with being overweight and worried about being overweight because I'm getting older and I want to have more kids. So I just overall didn't rate myself very well in that category. Spiritual and personal growth, I'm surprised I scored as high as I did, because I do a lot of things in the personal growth category, but not in the spiritual category. We are not religious people. I'm agnostic. If you didn't know that already, I'm sorry if you are disappointed in me for that decision, but I'm agnostic. I don't follow a specific religion. My husband doesn't either. So it's just not a part of our household. I don't engage in regular spiritual practice. I guess I need to decide what this looks like for me. Since I'm not a Christian and I don't follow a specific religion, I need to figure out how this category fits into my life. Financial, ended up with, I'm going to round this one up to a 4. We are already actively working towards this as a goal. We've already created a budget. We've already tried to sell some of our stuff that we don't need anymore. We figured out what areas we can cut back. We've canceled a lot of things, and I've taken on some extra jobs to recoup some extra money on the side and stuff. We are already making steps towards this, but there is definitely things that we could do more. I only gave myself a 3 in spending my money responsibly and living within my means because it's not common for us to overspend so much anymore, but it's definitely something that I've struggled with in the past. I am way more intentional with my purchases now than I ever was before. Working towards that, still not great, and it's definitely still something that I could fall back into if I'm not careful about it. And then physical environment, I gave myself a 6. This is one that I don't struggle with as much as I used to, but there are things that we could do here that would make it nicer for us to live here. So there are a lot of repairs and stuff that need to be made to our house because it's 140 years old. So while on the surface it looks like a great place to live, and it is, there are things below the surface that are probably going to come to a head at some point and we're going to need to replace. I'm not looking forward to that once it happens. I ended up going through this entire list here, all of the things that I showed you last night, and then I typed them up into a list based on what I wanted to incorporate in my goals for MakseLife, because some of this stuff was just random tasks that I wanted to complete or were not even kind of things that were on my radar at the moment, so I didn't want to include those. I took each of those tasks, I grouped them together based on what made sense. I put each of them combined with similar tasks, and I gave them all a broader goal. And then from there, based on what each of those things looked like, I determined what my focus was going to be for the year. So for right now, my physical environment, my main focus is going to be to set up the new house from all the moves. We moved myself out of my large house when I got my divorce into my apartment. We moved my husband up here from Florida, and then we had to combine both of our stuff into one apartment. So a lot of stuff went to storage. We bought our house last July, so then we moved from the apartment into this house. I gave up my studio finally after I closed my business, and there was a lot of stuff in there, so we ended up bringing most of that here to the house and then the other half to the storage unit. And then a few months ago, we finally decided to get rid of our storage unit and brought all that stuff here. So technically we've moved something 5 times in the last 2 years. So anyway, we've got a lot of stuff in our basement right now. It's been a goal of mine to go through all of that stuff in the basement, and I haven't prioritized it because it's very overwhelming. We cleaned out a portion of it to make space for the stuff that we brought back from storage, but then we brought back the stuff from storage and then we just refilled all of the space that we cleared out. So our basement is basically full right now. We also have some stuff up in the attic space off of my son's room. He has a room off of his bedroom that's just full of old toys of his that are not even necessarily relevant to him now, and what is going to be kept in there needs to be organized. We currently have our car, the Yukon, the Suburban that my brother traded us for the Yukon, my brother's Jeep that he's working on in our garage, and a Jeep that he bought and put in our driveway. Oh, and my old Ford Explorer that I used to drive as my main vehicle but doesn't run anymore. So we have a ridiculous amount of vehicles at our house right now. The Explorer is getting picked up tomorrow. I need to have my brother move the Suburban off of our lot. The Yukon, we either need to decide whether we're going to get it road ready or sell it, and I would like to sign up for AAA. I want to finish unpacking everything that's in our house. I want to be unpacked and not in a box unless it's like decorations for the holidays. I also have some prints that I want to get ordered so that I can hang some photos finally, and then other things to just like make our house a little more comfortable. The other thing is that I want to create like a cleaning checklist for our house so that nothing is getting missed. Many of my goals that are in this list are there because I hold entirely too much information in my brain, and I need to get it out somewhere to where I don't have to think about it. So as many of these things as I can get into checklists or trackers and stuff, while it may seem like overkill and over planning, it really does help me a lot, especially if I keep it in a place that I'm going to reference often. Also, just like having an older home, there's a lot more maintenance that needs to be done on this house than if we had bought a traditional home. So my financial goals, my focus is to be more mindful about spending and implementing a budget. We have been working on implementing a budget for the last like 6 months or so. When I left my job, I wanted to make sure that we were going to be all set financially if I stayed home and started the work on reopening my business. So I have a budget planner. I have all of our debt written down. We know exactly where we are as far as our financial standing. And I do go through every month and budget out our income versus our expenses. I just don't track it very much beyond the initial setup of it. We're not really entirely sure where the rest of that money goes once it's done paying our bills. One of the things that falls under being more mindful about spending is to make sure that we're cooking at home more often. We were doing a really good job at this for a little while, but then we stopped making it a priority. And now we're back to like having convenience meals or eating out. We both work from home. There's no reason why we can't buy meals that are easy to prepare on the nights that we don't feel like making an entire meal from scratch. And then to like check in on our monthly subscriptions regularly and make sure like, you know, if we've added anything onto that list recently, or if we've been paying on something, are we still using it actively? Or is there a way for us to downgrade the cost on it? Like we were spending a lot of money paying for streaming services that didn't have ads. We ended up saving like $20 a month by just going into each of them and setting them to have ads again. Spiritual and personal growth, I kind of talked about this one already. I want to figure out what this looks like to me. I think it's going to be more like personal reflection. One of the things that I do really want to do, I watched somebody do this in a YouTube video and I thought this was actually a really good idea. I mean, ADHD brain, out of sight, out of mind. There are so many things that I could love and I will just totally forget about them if I'm not actively thinking about them. So what I would like to do is I would like to just make like a database in Notion, put in a lot of the things that make me happy. Health and wellness, I really want to prioritize my mental and physical health. And while that seems like a very broad goal, like there are very specific things that I need to do that involve that. So I felt okay putting that as my focus. But our goal for next year, as far as health goes, is to get pregnant. We are currently coming at that from a place where we don't have health insurance. I am currently heavier than I would like to be when I get pregnant and are all significantly overdue for dental, vision, and doctor appointments. Probably the most important thing on this list is to schedule the necessary appointments and get us signed up for a health share. We cannot afford the health insurance through my husband's company, so we've decided to go the health share route, which we are confident about. So we do currently have dental and vision coverage. We just haven't used it yet because we just got it a few months ago. So I am a little bit ashamed to admit that I have not been to the dentist since before my son was born, and he's 11. I am a little bit nervous because I feel like I'm probably going to have extensive amounts of work done. So I'm not looking forward to that at all, and I really need to push myself to just get it over with. For fun and recreation, my focus is to make time for guilt-free fun. That means I need to set aside the time, put it on my calendar and commit to it, and not feel bad about taking that time to spend with my family. If I'm happy to be out and having a good time, I'm irritated with myself that we spent money. So difficult to get past that mindset. I also want to commit to practicing my hobbies. So my personal goals, my focus is just to be more independent. And for the most part, this is just going out regularly by myself. Family and relationships, my focus is communication and quality time. I talked extensively about the communication portion of this. I would like to implement family and friend check-ins as I'm scrolling through Facebook because I spend time on Facebook anyway. I want to stop and actively comment on more posts that I see in my feed from like people I actually enjoy talking to. I want to make a list of like the most important people in my circle, and then I'd like to like set up a routine for like checking in with them regularly. And then I also want to like make myself sit down a couple of times a week to like go back and respond to anything I missed during the week. And then I would like to schedule time with family at least once a month. Usually we already hit this naturally, but I was thinking that like even if we already have something else set up, that it would be nice at least once a month for it to be something that we organized. Same thing with friends. I don't have a lot of friends, but the ones I do, I don't spend enough time with. I would like to do the same kind of thing. Not necessarily monthly for that case. I mean, just occasionally, like inviting somebody out to lunch. And then I want to add all of the important birthdays and anniversaries into my Google Calendar so I don't forget about them. And then I actually want to like make myself send messages about those events because I often forget to do that. And then my son just needs a better routine as far as like things that are expected out of him at home versus like time on electronics. So that's going to be something we're working on too. So as you can see, I set up what I want my month for November to look like. Once I finished, I realized that this could look semi-overwhelming, but because it's like my monthly goals, my weekly goals, and my daily habits all combined, there are a lot of things on here that aren't going to actually take a ton of energy because there are just things that I can quickly check off my to-do list as long as I prioritize them. I'm gonna go through and add these into my actual plans now. Something important is that I have a lot of habits listed on here. These are not necessarily habits that I want to place 100% focus on. Some of these are just things that I would like to be habits by the end of the year. So I want to be aware of them and not forget about them. And some of them are already things that are habits for me. I just don't necessarily do them every single day, but I do try to do them on most days. Or they're things that are easy enough for me to track that I don't necessarily have to worry about them, like taking my vitamins. I track that in my health app on my phone. So it sends me a reminder, I go in and take my vitamins, and then I check off that I did it. So it's not something that I need to like put very much of my energy into. But I did go in and highlight the ones that I did want to focus on for this month, and I was trying to keep those below a certain number. So I think what I might do to keep track of which ones are MakseLife goal events is maybe just put an asterisk in the beginning of each of them. As far as timed appointments go, or things that I can actually schedule into my calendar that aren't just to-do list tasks, I need to change my name at the Social Security Administration, and then I want to go out by myself twice for my personal goals. Name change or Social Security, it would have to be on a Monday or a Tuesday. You know, I don't have a whole lot going on next week, so I'll just add that in there. Okay. And then going out by myself, I did it once yesterday. I went downtown to work from a coffee shop in town, and then I went to the bookstore by myself. Suppose I could go out at the beginning of Thanksgiving week. I'm trying to decide if I want to go to Serendipity again or if I want to go somewhere else. So for family and relationships, one of the things is to schedule Christmas cookies, but Christmas cookies wouldn't be until December. I just need to get with everybody to figure out when we're going to do that. I do need to go in and add November birthdays and anniversaries. I'm getting so old that I cannot remember any of these anymore. I want to do a one-on-one with Aiden. This month might be kind of difficult for that though, because we have plans both days that he's here on the weekend, and his dad has him for Thanksgiving. So maybe I take him out to breakfast. And we're gonna have family time on Thanksgiving and at the birthday party on Sunday. I don't think we need to schedule in another one because we're kind of hitting everybody. People are not gonna have a ton of extra time this month to get together. I feel like what we have on the schedule currently is enough family time. And everything else that's on there can be done as like a regular to-do list task. And then that's pretty much it as far as the month goes. So I've got my weekly page set up here. Now I'm gonna go in and add anything needs to go in at some point during this week. So I've already put my habits in a habit tracker down in the bottom left-hand corner. So I've already been spending time like knitting or crocheting in the evening when we've been sitting down watching TV. I made a hat for myself, and I'm currently making a hat for my husband. I'm also working on some art for a specific project. So I don't think I actually need to schedule that in this week. I might just note it down when I do it. currently working on scheduling Christmas cookies. Two days this week I want to add in to check my back text messages and Facebook messages. I think I will probably do that on Wednesday and Friday. Eating out less than 2 times a week, so I need to decide when that's going to be, because if I don't schedule it in, then we will just get it whenever we feel like it. And then we usually will get breakfast once a week. Friday is going to be kind of busy, so I think that's pretty much everything. Feeling pretty good looking back at this because it's been about a week since I first set up the November goals, maybe a little bit longer, honestly. I've already checked off quite a few of the things, so we'll go over here and I'll show you what we've done so far. Unfortunately, like the weekly ones aren't going to be completely accurate this month because I got a late start, but I actually can check a couple off because I did do some hobby stuff this past weekend. I did do this and that week. I have not actually physically done my name change for the Social Security Administration, but I filled out the application that I have to take in with me. I do have an appointment for that, but it's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, so I had to switch some things around on my schedule from when I first set the monthly up to, but that will be taken care of soon. I went out by myself last week. I reset my TBR, we returned to cans and bottles, we got the Explorer removed, and I think that's pretty much it for right now. There's quite a few things in the works or already scheduled, we just need to actually do them, finish them up. I will do a check-in with all of these at the end of the month when I do my December plan with me, and then we'll set up December's goals at the same time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.